So it's been confirmed, guys. Saracens have accepted automatic relegation from the Premiership next year. This has huge implications for English club rugby as well as European rugby. I'm going to discuss the implications and my opinion on all of this, as well as look forward to what the future holds for Saracens and Saracens fans. Kia ora everyone, my name is Zach. I love rugby. Welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. Let's start with what we know, guys. We knew that there was a violation of the salary cap, and it was identified back there in November, that Saracens were given a penalty of minus 35 points. Obviously, that's impacted their ability to win the Premiership this year. We know that. And they were also given a period of time to come back with a please explain around the violations and make administrative changes to ensure that this would not happen into the future. That deadline has passed, and they were given an ultimatum. And that ultimatum was either they could accept that someone from the Premiership Rugby would come in, do a forensic analysis on their audited books, and really look to what the extent of the issues are from a breach perspective. Alternatively, they could accept automatic relegation from the Premiership. Now, they accepted automatic relegation from the Premiership, and that has huge implications, right? So it means that they will not feature next year. It means there are question marks around players going into future years. Will they maintain the current player pool? Will they release players? We don't know yet. Are they able to come back and rebuild trust? And that seems to be one of the big focus points, as they did release a statement. So let me go through that statement. I'll go through exactly what they've said in response to the penalty that's been imposed here, and then I'll just give you my thoughts on what I think about their statement and what I think the future holds for Saracens rugby. So I'm referring to an article that was written by the Rugby Pass team, and the statement from Saracen reads as such: the board of Saracens wishes to unreservedly apologise for the mistakes made in relation to the salary cap regulations. Our goal is to rebuild confidence and trust. The first step was to appoint a new independent chairman to lead on governance reform, ensuring errors of the past are not replicated in the future. Furthermore, following open and frank discussions with PRL, we have accepted the unprecedented measure of automatic relegation from the Premiership at the end of 2019-2020 season. We understand this decision will be difficult for the Saracens family to accept. The board must embody the values of the club, learn from its mistakes, so the club can come back stronger. It is in the wider interests of the Premiership and English rugby to take this decisive step to ensure everybody is able once again to focus on the game of rugby, which we all love. Now, what we know, there were two clear options on the table, and Saracens elected to go for automatic relegation. So you might look at this and say, well, clearly they are hiding something. And I suspect they probably are, right? But on the other side of the coin, it's important that in issues like this, that everyone just moves on and gets on with their lives. You could look at this and say, well, Saracens have admitted guilt, and they're willing to suffer the consequences, which automatic relegation is pretty much as bad as it can get, right? So on that side of things, the process of rebuilding can start afresh. And I think that is something that, you know, if you are a Saracens fan, that it's in everyone's best interest just to accept responsibility, face down the punishment, and move forward. So I do like what they're saying here around, you know, the focus now can be on rugby, the focus now can be on rebuilding trust with both fans as well as Premiership rugby. I think that's a good move, and I think that's an important move, but there are so many questions up in the air now, right? What happens next? Essentially, you've got a player pool of guys that are competing in European rugby right now and, you know, have made the quarterfinals essentially. So the question is that a good outcome? You know, these guys have obviously got there with some violation of the salary cap. Now they're competing for potential European honours. Obviously, they can't compete for Premiership honours, but they are competing for European honours, and that has huge implications and financial rewards for the club as well. Is it fair that they are able to do that? Now, obviously, Premiership Rugby does not have a mandate over the European Champions Cup, but again, it just doesn't sit right with a lot of people. The other thing is, what is the extent of the cheating that has happened here? Without a forensic analysis of the books, we just don't know, right? And then the other major question mark is to rectify these issues and get things right. Which players are going to be released? We don't know the implications of that. Obviously, they've appointed a new chairman who has been tasked with getting the administrative side and the salary cap procedures correct. But what does that mean for players? that's another thing that's up in the air that we will be wondering and watching with anticipation. Now, that aside, obviously there is a Champions Cup still to compete for, and they played against Racing 92 in the weekend. Now, I did say on my channel that I would do a reaction to that match, and I watched the match, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on the game right now. Now, going into this game with that cloud hanging over Saracens, the question was always going to be, what team would turn up? Which team would turn up? Would it be a team that is, falling apart under public pressure? Or would it be a team that is galvanised by the public pressure surrounding them and are there to play rugby? And a lot to play for here, right? So there are European quarterfinal championship spots available for both of these teams should they win. Now, going into it, these are two powerhouses of European rugby. Racing 92, obviously a very, very good club with long-term record. Saracens, obviously defending champs in the Champions Cup. Now, my takeaway from the game. Saracens were clearly the most dominant team from a forward perspective, and early on, they really showed that forward dominance. They were able to score 2 quick tries in the first 11 minutes, and that resulted in them taking a 14 points to 0 lead. And that was all built on the dominance that was exerted by the forwards and the rewards for pressure that they were able to get as a result, right? Rewards for dominance translated into points. Within the first 11 minutes, they're up 14 points. Then what we noticed throughout the game is a couple of lapses in concentration. There was a kick that went up from Racing 92. It was contested. Ball bounced for Hakatime, who was able to run away and score a try. Now, you're never going to stop him 40 metres out, with a clear run to the try line. In my mind, he's probably the most destructive ball runner in the game, Hakatime. Right up there with Manu Tuilangi, I think, as one of the most destructive ball runners in the game. So you're never going to stop him that close to the line, right? But what we did see is that, defensive lapse, which led to the contested ball, which led to the try from Hakatime, allowed Racing 92 back into the game. What we also saw within the first 10 minutes was Billy Vunipola injured his arm and had to go off. Now, that has implications, obviously, for the Six Nations squad. He's been suspected a broken arm and will be unavailable for selection for England in the Six Nations. But also in terms of this game, it meant a little bit of reshuffling and obviously a need to respond to that gap now left by what is a really, really good player. So Saracens elected to move Itoje into the blindside flank. And what a great luxury that is to have someone as skilled as Itoje, as athletic as Itoje, to be able to move him from lock into the loose forward trio. So, and he had a fantastic game. He was his typical menacing self. He managed to bag 2 tries in this game. The first try was actually a Maro Itoje try after he took the line out, barnstorming run from Billy Vunipola, and then Itoje was the first one out the ruck with the ball and able, through support of his team, to get over the line. So fantastic work there. But as I mentioned, Racing 92 were able to come back into the match. Then shortly after, maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, Saracens throw an intercept pass. It's intercepted by Racing 92. They run away for another try. So at that point, you're 14. Well, actually, at that point, it was 17-14 after being 10 points up. So all of that dominance exerted by the forwards has now translated to a 3-point lead as opposed to a 14-point lead. And to me, that's pure lapses in concentration. Then we had some disciplinary issues as well. So Will Skelton, probably one of the tallest locks in the game at the moment. Lazy tackle, poor technique. He makes contact with the head, with his shoulder. It's a late tackle. There is very little use of arms, and it's contact with the head. So that's a trifecta of issues, which normally translates to a red card. That's exactly what he got. And that's just before half-time, guys. So again, while we have a dominant team here in Saracens, to my observation, they were able to let Racing 92 back in the game. And that's just through lapses in concentration and disciplinary issues. So from that point, Racing 92 scored again before the half to take the lead. It's now 21 points to 17. Then they were able to score a try just after half time. So then a penalty just after half time. It's 24 points to 17. At this point, you think, well, they're down a man. Saracens are down a man. Can they come back? And to their credit, they did. Right, they were able to go tit for tat in scoring. And with 5 minutes to go, Owen Farrell got a kick from right out in front in order to snatch the game. They held on with that last 5 minutes and secured the win. Now, the implications of that win means that they are able to go through to the quarterfinal, and the same for Racing 92. Given it was a close win in their performance thus far, they go through as well. And we'll preview the quarterfinal games later. Obviously, they're not up until April, but that's a huge win for them. I will say that it looked like a galvanised team. Obviously, some lapses let Racing 92 back into the game. That's something they'll certainly be looking to address. But they certainly have the personnel there to dominate any team. And they showed that even on a bad day, they can still get up and win, despite being down one man for a full half. So, great performance there from Saracens. They're able to obviously move forward into European Cup quarterfinals, but still there is this cloud hanging over them, right? And what's really, really interesting is, had they been under the salary cap, right, had they not had that level of personnel at their disposal, how would they have gone in this match? Now, to my mind, I don't think they would have got home, right? I think if you take out some of those key members in the Saracens team, I can't see how they get home in that game against Racing 92 when faced with that level of difficulty. Obviously, down a man for a full half, some lapses in the first half allowing Racing 92 to come back into the game. I just can't see how they get home. So they're very, very fortunate that greater sanctions and actions haven't been taken immediately to correct that team, because it would mean that as far as European contention goes, they're no longer in that contention for the Champions Cup. And what happens next, right? So obviously they've still got a lot to play for, and there's a lot of financial benefit that comes from winning a European Championship. So without a doubt, they'll be throwing everything at their ability to win the Champions Cup. But to me, again, it just doesn't sit right. Go back to the decision that they had. Either allow Premiership Rugby to do a forensic analysis on their books or accept automatic relegation. Now, when I go back at the success that Saracens has had in the last couple of years, right? You look at the championships that they've won in the last couple of years, and the questions have to be raised now. How far does this issue of salary cap violation go? And would they have been as competitive in previous years as they are right now? I mean, I just mentioned how if it wasn't for the personnel that they have available right now, which they were able to secure through violations of the salary cap, I don't see them getting home in that game against Racing 92, and I don't see them going on to compete for European honours this year. So looking back at those championships, how does that sit with everyone, right? Clear violations of the salary cap. Without forensic analysis being done, we don't know how far back this goes, but we have to assume that this is certainly not the first time that a salary cap violation has been put in place. So I would have liked to have seen Premiership Rugby take a much harder stance here, right? Obviously, there's a balance between punishing the administrators of a club versus punishing the fans of a club. And I'm sure they're trying to find that right balance to ensure the fans can still get something out of this year. But it should have been an absolute request to do that forensic analysis. And there should be a review of whether or not those championships that were previously won hold true, or whether or not they should be stripped of those titles. I think a very, very harsh line needs to be played here to ensure and deter other clubs from doing exactly the same thing. That's my thoughts, guys. Obviously a lot to cover off here, but I wanted to give my full and thorough thoughts on the scandal that's played out here. Let me know what you think, right? Comment down below. Like if you like this video. I'm up to suggestions for other videos. I like this kind of format where I can just have an open discussion with you about my thoughts. I'll be doing a preview show on the Six Nations coming up very, very soon. So if you like this, as I said, please comment down below. Let's engage in conversation and encourage debate in the comment section. And please subscribe if you like the channel. That's it from me. I'll speak to you guys soon.